This is the Okeechobee Battlefield Historic State Park. It's located near Lake Okeechobee in Florida. Let's take a look at this Second Seminole War battlefield.
We're going to take a look at three monuments dedicated to the Battle of Okeechobee.
This monument is dedicated to the Battle of Okeechobee, which was fought in 1837 on Christmas Day. And this monument was dedicated in 1939 by the Daughters of the American Revolution. This monument is dedicated to the establishment of the Okeechobee Battlefield Historic State Park, which opened in 2015. This historical marker gives a brief synopsis of the Battle of Okeechobee, and it was installed in 2017.
This is a replica of a chickee hut that the Seminoles commonly used. During the Second Seminole War, Major General Thomas Jessup devised a four-pronged invasion of South Florida to end the Seminole resistance. Colonel Zachary Taylor commanded one of these columns. He had assembled his force in Tampa, Florida, comprising of the 1st, 4th, and 6th Infantry Regiments. Taylor's column advanced southeast following the course of the Kissimmee River and established a chain of forts, the last being Fort Basinger, where Taylor left a garrison of 200 troops to tend to the sick and wounded and guard Seminole prisoners. Colonel Zachary Taylor departed from Fort Basinger with 803 troops at 2 p.m. on December 23, 1837. Colonel Taylor was in search of Apika, who along with Alligator and Wildcat had gathered half of the entire Seminole warriors on the north shore of Lake Okeechobee. Taylor's force marched 7 miles through marshy terrain. After a captured Seminole informed Taylor of the whereabouts of the Seminole forces, Colonel Taylor resumed his march at daybreak on December 24, 1837, in a hard rain. Crossing Taylor Creek, Colonel Taylor organized his force into 2 lines. The first line was commanded by Colonel Gentry's Missouri Volunteer Regiment. The second line was composed of the 4th and 6th Infantry Regiments, while the 1st Infantry Regiment was held in reserve. Zachary Taylor's force arrived at a large hammock with a half-mile of swamp in front of it at 11 a.m. on December 25, 1837. On the far side of the hammock was Lake Okeechobee. Here, sawgrass stood 5 feet tall and the muddy water was waist-deep. The Seminoles and Miccosukee chose a sand ridge to make their stand. The Seminoles cut the grass to provide an open line of fire and notched the trees to steady their rifles. Scouts were placed atop cypress trees to watch Taylor's movements, and canoes were placed along the shore of Lake Okeechobee if they needed to retreat. Wildcat commanded 80 warriors on the left. Alligator had 120 warriors in the center. Sam Jones and Halleck Tustanegee led 180 warriors on the right. From this strong position, the Seminoles awaited Colonel Zachary Taylor's attack. The battle began when Colonel Zachary Taylor ordered Colonel Gentry to launch a frontal attack on the center of the Seminole line. 132 Missouri volunteers advanced through the swamp, which provided an exceedingly difficult obstacle. The Missourians received numerous cuts from the sawgrass, which hampered their advance. At this point, Colonel Gentry raised his sword and yelled, "Come on, my boys," leading the charge through the remaining 200 yards of swamp. Gentry's line marched straight toward a jutting peninsula on the Seminoles' left flank, which provided a group of Seminoles fortress-like protection. When Gentry's Missourians had advanced within 100 yards of the peninsula, the Seminoles opened up a fierce volley that continued down the Seminole line. Colonel Gentry was shot in the chest early in the firefight, but asked his men to prop him up so he could continue to direct the attack. While urging his men forward, Gentry was shot again in his abdomen, but managed to survive for another hour. At this point, the U.S. 6th Infantry Regiment was moved up from the center of the line and entered the fury of the battle from behind the Missouri Volunteers. The Seminoles, concealed behind trees, fired relentlessly on the U.S. 6th Infantry Regiment, which suffered great casualties. As the 6th Infantry Regiment advanced on the peninsula, its commander, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Thompson, was shot in the abdomen and the chest. Continuing to lead the attack, Colonel Thompson was shot a third time through his chin and neck. The 6th Infantry Regiment suffered severe casualties under the withering fire of the Seminoles, with only one officer not being wounded, as the Seminoles had specifically targeted the officers. Lieutenant Frank Brooke, nephew of Virginia Governor Robert Brooke, was killed. Lieutenant William H.T. Walker, a future Confederate general, was shot 5 times but survived. Meanwhile, Major Sconce and Morgan's spies held on to the piece of hammock they had captured earlier on the far right. The Missouri Volunteers and the 6th Infantry continued to fight on the right side of the U.S. line, but the U.S. 6th Infantry suddenly fell back 40 yards, which was followed by a general retreat of the Missouri Volunteers, despite the mortally wounded Colonel Gentry's pleas to continue the fight. The Seminoles suddenly launched a counterattack on the remaining soldiers, taking scalps from the slain and wounded. The dying Colonel Gentry asked for reinforcements from Colonel William Davenport's 1st Infantry Regiment, but he refused on the grounds that Colonel Taylor had not ordered him forward. Nevertheless, the 6th Infantry and Missouri Volunteers rallied and drove the Seminoles back. Meanwhile, Captain Noel, in command of 2 6th Infantry Regiment companies to the left, and after sustaining heavy casualties holding his line, decided to advance his men, who reached the hammock and established a foothold. As the battle continued to rage on the U.S. right, Colonel William Foster, commander of the U.S. 4th Infantry Regiment, advanced his 160 troops forward and gained control of the hammock, where they were reinforced by Gilliam's spies. The Seminoles then launched a counterattack on the left of Foster's line, atop the hammock. Major William Graham, Foster's second in command, attacked the Seminoles and drove them back a half a mile across a creek. Meanwhile, Colonel Foster and his remaining troops continued southward across the hammock in a flanking movement. When Colonel Foster's troops were within sight of Lake Okeechobee, he was suddenly struck in his right flank and rear by a Seminole counterattack. Colonel Foster formed a line with his left on the edge of the Lake Okeechobee and his right at the edge of the Sawgrass, facing westward and blocking the escape route of the Seminoles to the west. The Seminoles launched 3 savage attacks, reinforced by warriors who had previously been fighting at the peninsula. During their second attack, the Seminoles used deception, convincing Colonel Foster they were U.S. allied Delaware Indians, then launched a vicious volley on Foster's troops, causing heavy casualties. Captain Noel of the 6th Infantry, who had earlier advanced to the hammock with his 2 companies, now joined Colonel Foster's line on the right near the Sawgrass. The Seminoles launched a 4th assault on Foster's line. After this attack failed, Colonel Davenport and his 173 troops of the U.S. 1st Infantry Regiment arrived. We'll take a closer look at some of the sawgrass that's preserved on a portion of the battlefield. Now, the Army would have been advancing through this the entire length of the battlefield. With superior American forces now on the hammock, the Seminoles began a general withdrawal across Lake Okeechobee by canoe, and the battle was over by 3 p.m. The United States suffered 26 killed and 112 wounded. The Seminoles suffered 11 killed and 14 wounded and none captured. The Battle of Okeechobee stopped Colonel Zachary Taylor's troops from advancing further southward. Instead, the heavy casualties forced Colonel Taylor's army to withdraw 100 miles northwestward back towards Tampa. Colonel Zachary Taylor earned the nickname Old Rough and Ready, and a decade later was elected President of the United States. If you enjoyed this visit to Okeechobee Battlefield Historic State Park on Lake Okeechobee, please click like, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on our next adventure.